Alright, so for the sandals, probably not the best way to do it. It just depends. But how I do it is by just masking out where I want for the sandals. Actually, let me increase the poly count on this really quickly. Give that a second. But yeah, I do it very similar to how I do the clothes, with just masking out basically kind of where like the major straps are. So like if we want, say it goes up to here, one around the ankle, one kind of just behind the toes like that, and then I will also mask out just the bottom of the foot. Kind of like that, and then I also usually give them like a little bit something back here just for the heel of some kind. And then it depends like how exactly you want it. So I will actually turn off symmetry for this. Because like for some of the sandals I know we have where there's essentially kind of like this large piece that goes up the center, and then the sandals connect just via straps, like straight straps across. This is definitely an easier version. It's a lot easier for UVing, because UVing the sandals can be difficult. Or if you want, instead of doing like that, you can do, we also have some that do kind of like this, where they kind of just cross over. This is a very, very rough version of this, but oops. Yeah, so like it'll just kind of cross over. Probably needs to be more thinner straps in between here for this, but it is what it is for now. Just go like this, just to get the idea. Usually if I do this on the back here, I just have the heel part come up to like the lowest strap with the ankles, just so it's easier to connect and deal with. Come across down like this. That was terrible. Like this, something like that. And then once I have that done, I will pretty much do like I did the clothes and extract it. That's too much. 0.01. Yeah, so like I will extract it. I usually make it thicker than it usually needs to be, just so that when it's done, it will be good. Then I do polish by features, because that usually keeps the nice flat edges. Then once that's done, switch this to Dynamesh. Should be good. And from here, I would usually just use the for this. Just use the move tool to kind of get it to a point where it's flattened out. Usually pull it out a little bit further on the sides and around the toes. probably not really this far, but usually I'll form the toes after doing the shoes. So, and then to get a nice flat bottom, I use the H polish brush. And then just kind of smooth it out. This is like the main reason why I make them thicker. Is because usually doing this, that thins it out a lot. And then also just make the H polish brush smaller and usually go around the edges of the brush, or the edges of the straps, make them flatter. Kind of doing stuff like that. And then once I have that, to kind of make where the straps will fold in or under, I'll usually do just some lines around here like this, or sometimes if you want them to come over, do lines like this. It needs to be a higher resolution for it to really do this part, but if you want the lines, like for this you would have to do by hand, but if you want the lines to be more straight, if you hold down and then press shift and drag out, it'll drag a nice line. And then do kind of the same thing for this, where I just kind of figure out how I want them to fold under. This is honestly probably a little too thick for me. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. I mean, keeping them a little bit thicker is better for when you go to UV them, because otherwise they will be the UVs get kind of messy with the shoes. Also, these shoes are not the best I've done, but for these, yeah, I usually use the straight line a lot just to get stuff like this going, and then I'll usually choose one of these as to overlay on the other. Oops. Do the same thing here. Usually have something like that. And pretty much just using Damien standard to like really just do all the lines and where each one will overlap on each other. But I mean, other than this, I don't do too much for the shoes, like in terms of a lot of detail. Most of the time, like especially for like sandals, I'll just spend a lot of time doing this. And like this side here could be flattened out a bit more. This probably needs to be like actually moved up, so that's actually along with the foot, not pulled down like that. This back heel would actually come out more. Just kind of small just adjustments like that. In terms of real detail, I don't do much beyond using just Damien standard to like outline the straps or where they're at, or like for this this part we usually have as like just a metal, it's usually kind of like a metal plate, so if you wanted to, depending like which style you want to go for this, you could kind of just outline the edges. Just do this real quick. Very messy, but just kind of outline the edge of this really quickly, and then inflate it a little bit just to give it some depth. Or sometimes, like, because this is so thick already, what I would probably do would be mask everything else beyond like just the center part and then deflate it so that you get basically it gets a little bit thinner here, but have to mask everything, otherwise you get all these weird edges like that. Just go ahead and do that. But yeah, beyond that, it's just a lot of small adjustments on the sandals. I really don't do too much detail normally. Yeah, I mean, if you want like to try to clean up the lines like a little bit too, you can use clay polish, but it tends to kind of make these lines really smoothed out, like especially right here. So a lot of times I would do that and then just go back over them with Damien Standard again. I'm not on Damien Standard. I'll just go back over them to give them back that little bit of depth. But yeah, that's about it. It just depends on like how much detail you want to put into them and how much you want to do for each thing.